they take up. This part what we are going to see is plant anatomy in ecological interpretation. This is pretty very important, and this should be understood by the students that ecological interpretation is a very important topic when it comes to ecology, and how plant anatomy helps into ecological interpretation, that we are going to see into this topic. Before moving on to that, I should say that we should understand what is ecology. Oikos, I hope you must be knowing this. Oikos is house and logos is science, study of life in relation to environment. So I have given that beautiful picture where it shows that all birds, plants, insects, human beings, everybody are living into harmony, and everyone requires others helps. So study of life in relation to environment is known as ecology. Plant ecology, particularly when we talk about plant ecology, it is concerned with plant with their surroundings. So when I say plant ecology, I am concerned more about the plants with their surroundings, whatever their surroundings may be, habitats. Okay. Now let us see what are the applications of plant anatomy in ecological interpretation. So first thing I have taken into it, plant adaptations. Now what kind of adaptations happen into plants? Instead of giving you those bulleted points, I thought I should give you something that can strike your brain. Okay, so I have made a flowchart into this case. Let us understand this flowchart. Classification of plants based on the ecological interpretation, I can classify into hydrophytes, right? So what are hydrophytes? The plants living in water are known as hydrophytes. What are the characters for plants which are living into water? They have thin cuticle, poor root system, and their stem and leaves will have air chambers into it. So when you take a section, see, I am telling you, when you take a section, you will find that there are air chambers. When I say you take a section, you are looking into plant anatomy, and this is how you apply plant anatomy in identifying a hydrophyte. That is a ecological interpretation for hydrophyte, right? So similarly, there are some plants which are categorized into mesophytes. These are normal terrestrial plants. And what are the character for the terrestrial plants? They have well developed tissue system, they have extensive root system, and to identify this, what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to take a section. Similarly, we move on to the other part, which is xerophytes. What do you understand by xerophytes? Xerophytes are the plants which live into water scarcity area. So these plants, particularly these plants, have characters like roots deep in soil, efficient vascular system which is there into it. Then we move on to the other type of ecological interpretation, which is epiphyte. They are growing onto the other plants, or they are growing onto plants, and they require a support to grow. Okay, what are the characters of epiphytes? They only take support, right? You keep in mind there is a difference between epiphyte and a parasite. Into epiphyte, they just grow onto another plants, and they take another plants as a support. They have different root systems like clinging roots or hanging roots. If you take section of these roots, you will find different vascular systems, different organization of vascular systems, different number of different cells into it. The next part, like I said, to compare with parasites. Parasitic plants growing on the other plants. These parasitic plants have a hostorial root, a modification into root system which is hostorial root. What does that root do? That root tends to penetrate the other plants and when it goes inside the other plant, it tries to absorb the sap from that plant and it uses for its own growth. You can take the best example of Cuscuta. Okay. Then halophytes, this is a different ecological interpretation of plants. This is a different category of plants where halophytes are considered to grow into salt-rich environments. The plants that can grow into salt-rich environments. The best example would be mangrove plants. Okay. So what are the characteristics? They are growing into marshy lands, right? Sea waters, estuaries. They have a habit of viviparous seed germination into them. Okay, so these are some of the adaptations. These are some of the adaptations that are occurring based on ecological interpretation. And understanding each of these ecological interpretation, what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to know the plant anatomy. Now, before moving on to the further description of it, I hope you have understood all the parts that I have told you now. We'll differentiate now. We'll try to identify how plant anatomy is useful into each of these categories, like plant anatomy into ecological interpretation of hydrophytes first. So into hydrophytes, I should say, the habit of these plants is water. Epidermis of these plants are thin-walled and parenchymatous. The cortex region, when you cut a plant, the larger part into the section would be cortex, and that cortex is extensive, large, okay, well developed, and they have large cavities into it. So that cavities will help that stem or that leaf to float. Air cavities, it is known as air cavities. These cavities will help, like I have shown in the figure below. It's the photo credit is given for all the pictures. So you can see that the particular second figure, the second figure is of this figure. This particular figure shows that there are large air cavities into the section of the stem. And then also I wish to tell you that the best example for this would be Nymphia, that is the lotus plant. You will see the leaf of lotus always floating over the water. It has poorly developed root system as well, like we have discussed into earlier cases. Vascular bundles, they have minimum developed vascular bundles. You will see in the section. The section is not very clear to see the vascular bundles, but you will see the major part is covered with the air chambers. Right? Vascular bundles, normally it is important to conduct water from roots to the required parts. But here, since that plant is inside water, the requirement of water is not that much. So water is available readily throughout all the parts. Okay. And last part, it lacks sclerenchyma. It doesn't have sclerenchyma. There are extensive air chambers like we have discussed earlier, and there are absorbing tissues which are there in it. So they can absorb the water or the minerals from nearby sources. Okay. The best examples for this is Nymphia, Vallisneria and Eichhornia. We move on to the next part. Next part is xerophytes, plant anatomy in ecological interpretation of xerophytes particularly. Habit, they are thick with cuticle. Xerophytes which grow into water scarce area. Okay, so they have a thick cuticle. This thick cuticle will help avoid transpiration. So water loss from the plant surface is avoided because of cuticle. They have sunken stomata. Stomatas are sunken inside. So the stomatas are inside the epidermis. You can see the picture which is shown onto the screen. here you will see that there is sunken stomata. Stomata are inside the epidermis. So this is known as sunken stomata. Okay. Here you will see that there is a stomatal opening, guard cells. Okay. They have extensive sclerenchyma. They have reduced size of leaf. The leaves are not so large. You consider opuntia where leaves are equal to nil. They are converted into thorns. Particularly, you take example of agave, you take example of aloe. You will see that there are no typical types of leaves, but you will see that these leaves are thick and succulent. Okay, and then water storing mucilaginous or latex tissues are present. The examples would be euphorbia, agave, aloe, and opuntia. Plant anatomy in ecological interpretation. Plant anatomy in ecological interpretation of epiphytes. So, what are the characters that we can see into it? The characters would be absorptive tissue of velamen. It acts as sponge and absorbs moisture from surrounding epiphytes, the plants which grow onto other plants without harming them. The examples would be orchids like Vanda, Dendrobium. So these are some of the characters which are there into it. Let us look at halophytes. What are halophytes? The plants which are growing into salt-rich environment. They are known as halophytes. They have a specialized assembly. They have a specialized thing known as pneumatophores. These we can say they are growing from the roots, and they are negatively geotropic. That means they grow against the gravity upward, right? And when they are growing upward, you will see these pneumatophores having small pores onto them, and these small pores help exchange of gases. They help exchange of gases. So respiratory pneumatophores are there into halophytes. Their leaves are succulent, thick epidermis are present, mesophils without intracellular spaces are there. The examples for this is Rhizophora and Soneraceae. Now we move on, we change our gaze from ecological part to plant anatomy in pharmacognosy. There are two more left: plant anatomy in pharmacognosy and wood sciences. Plant anatomy in pharmacognosy, I suggest that pharmacognosy, what does pharmacognosy mean? It is the study for biological, biochemical and economical features of natural drugs. So it may be plant based or animal based, both, but majority into pharmacognosy we see that plants are the major sources. So you will study biological, biochemical and economic features of that natural drug. Pharmacognosy is concerned with history, so you will tend to see the history of the plant, where it is occurring, from where it has been originated, its distribution, where does it occur and how it is distributed, cultivation, how you can cultivate it, collection, what is the right time to collect the plant, selection, whether the plant material is selected properly or not, preparation, if you are supposed to prepare a drug, how you prepare it, its commerce, how you sell it, right? How it is, whether it is efficacious or not, and other things like identification, evaluation, preservation and use of drugs. So all this comes into pharmacognosy. So purity and quality. So when it comes to purity and quality of drugs, anatomical studies or anatomical features are of great importance. Like quantitative microscopy, where you tend to look for points like stomatal number, stomatal index. Stomatal number, you just count the number of stomata per square area, whatever it may be, per inch square, per mm square per centimeter square. So you tend to calculate how many stomata are there into mm square, so that you can largely multiply onto the complete leaf, right? Stomatal index, fiber lengths, number of sclerenchymatous cells, just count the number of sclerenchymatous cells into one particular area, etc. all comes into quantitative microscopy. So you have to take the section of leaf, stem, fruit, whatever the plant part or the drug may be, it may be even the root, and then you look for the quantitative features. Quantitative, you measure, you count onto them, okay. Then we also look for the microscopic observations into crude drugs. You will see the palisade ratio, cell wall, trichome features. How are the trichome? Whether it is glandular. If you see trichomes of say, I should give you example of ocimum. When you touch a ocimum plant and feel the fragrance, you will immediately see there is some fragrance. You go to mint leaf, you see touch the plant and take the fragrance, whether it comes or not. So these features are depending largely onto the glandular trichomes which are present onto them. So glandular trichomes tend to secrete such volatile oils which can help us take the aroma, or maybe even in other case foul smell also, okay. So these types of trichomes observations, fibers, you are supposed to see the vessels, and to see all this you require a microscope. And when you do that, you either take a section, right? To see the vessels you have to take the section, to look at the fibers you have to take the section, you have to see the cell wall, you have to take the section, okay. And then with the microscopic observation using plant anatomy, you distinguish the drug. So that means you are studying the pharmacognosy character, okay. Then there is a last part into our observations, into our syllabus, which is based on plant anatomy in wood identification. So if you are supposed to identify a wood, how will you do it? So xylem, into wood identification, xylem is an important vascular bundle. We say that into all plants it is very important because it helps into conduction. The amount and nature of xylem varies from species to species. You have to believe this. When it comes to xylem, we always say that the amount and nature of xylem varies from one species to another species. So xylem is made up of what? It is made up of xylem vessels. It is made up of tracheids, wood fibers, wood parenchyma, and many other things. And what are vessels? Vessels, or rather what are vessels? They are part of xylem. And when it comes to vessels, the arrangement of these vessels and whether the vessels are present or absent. So these characters will help into wood identification. So for example, I will give you gymnosperms. Into gymnosperms, vessels are absent and wood is non-porous type of wood. So wood is called as non-porous type of wood and vessels are absent. When it comes to angiosperms, vessels are present and wood is porous type. So you are being provided with a wood material, you take a section of it and you look for vessels into it. Under a microscope, you look for vessels under a microscope. So when you see for vessels, if it is present, it should be an angiosperm. If it is absent, it should be a gymnosperm. So what you are doing? You are doing a wood identification here. So whether that wood is from an angiosperm or whether it is from a gymnosperm. Then porous wood is of again two types. Now further, porous wood is of two types based on its distribution. Based on its distribution, it is of two types. Diffuse porous wood, diffuse, the name itself says, it is uniformly distributed. Example, into acacia, where you take a section of a acacia wood and you will see that the porous wood has a diffused distribution. Whereas in ring porous wood, there is another wood type which is ring porous wood. It is seasonal wood formation in rings. It means that the example is oak. It means that as the season changes, so season changes into two ways, spring and autumn. You will see that during spring season there is addition of some vessels or some cells, and when there is autumn season there is addition of different types of cells. So when there is change of season, the amount of cells which is produced is different. Okay, you will see that autumn you will have less or small amount of cells produced, whereas into spring season you will see more amount of cells produced. So it gives a ring like structure. So there is a autumn ring and there is a spring ring into the wood. Okay, so it gives you a identification of wood character, that there is wood formation in ring wise manner. So you can say that it is a ring porous wood, and in some cases there is diffuse type of wood where there would be uniform distribution. Okay, so this is based on distribution you will identify porous wood and non-porous type of wood. This is how wood identification can be done in case you are by using plant anatomy. Further, primitiveness or advancedness, whether the plant is advanced or primitive, how you can find out? Based on the secondary wall thickenings. Annular or spiral or scalariform, reticulate, simple and bordered pit. So here you say that there is different type of wood formation happening, whether it is annular, whether it is spiral, there is scalariform, reticulate type, simple and or bordered pitted type. Further, structures of rays in woods. What are the structures of rays in wood? These are all characters which will help you in identification of woods. So there are two types: uniseriate in coniferous and multiseriate in dicots. So if a wood material is given and you see the structure of rays into it, okay, if it is a uniseriate, uni is one, multi is many, seriate lines. So if you see a single line cell formation, it is coniferous. If it is multi-lined cell formation, it is a dicot. So the next point would be parenchyma in relation with vessels. So into parenchyma, apotracheal and paratracheal. Apo means independent and para means associated. So apotracheal parenchyma is a character for primitiveness. So into primitive wood types or the members of primitive family, you will see the woods with apotracheal parenchyma. Apotracheal, the parenchyma is independent from vessels. But when it comes to advanced type of families, you will see the paratracheal type of parenchyma. It means that the vessels are associated with parenchyma. This will help us identify the woods using plant anatomy. Friends, these are some of the questions that are important. Try to solve them with the lecture what I have delivered right now, with the available literature with you, the textbooks, the online material. Try to solve this so that you can get some good view onto the examinations. This is a book that I have referred for my current presentation. Thank you.